There's a specific feeling you get when you're standing in a bathroom in Damascus at 11:15 at night, looking at yourself in a cracked mirror, knowing that in 45 minutes you're going to break into a Syrian intelligence office. Your hands don't shake. That's not how it works. What happens is your mind goes completely cold and clear, like water in a mountain stream, and you start running through every single step of what's about to happen. Every step, every contingency, every way it could go to hell. I was 51 years old. Some people would say that's too old to be doing this kind of work. Those people have never done this kind of work. Age doesn't matter. What matters is whether you quit or not. And I don't quit. Never have. Won't start now. The hotel room was typical Middle Eastern cheap concrete walls painted yellow about a decade ago, a bed that felt like sleeping on a pile of bricks, and plumbing that sounds like someone was torturing metal pipes in the walls. But the location was perfect. 3 blocks from the target building, close enough to walk, far enough to not be obviously connected if things went bad. My cover was petroleum equipment consultant. Made sense for Syria. They had oil fields in the east, needed Western equipment, needed Western expertise. I'd been in Damascus for 6 days, making the rounds, having meetings with deputy ministers and procurement officers, playing the part, built up a pattern, dinners at the same restaurants, morning walks, evening drinks at the hotel bar. People saw me, people knew me. The petroleum equipment guy, American, friendly, spent money, tipped well. That's how you build cover. You become predictable, you become boring, you become the guy nobody thinks about. Except tonight I was going to stop being boring. The target was a 4-story building on Rue Baghdad, right in the middle of Damascus. Syrian Military Intelligence, the Mukhabarat. 3rd floor, northeast corner office. That's where they kept the files on foreign operatives working in Lebanon. Not all the files, just the active operational files. The stuff they were using right now, current assets, current operations, names and locations and payment records. We needed those files badly. Lebanon was a mess, complete and total mess. The Civil War had been going for years and every intelligence service in the world was running operations there. The Syrians were deep into it. They had people everywhere. And some of those people were getting in our way, and getting in our way badly. We needed to know who they were. We needed to know what they knew. We needed to get inside their operational planning. So somebody had to go get the files. I volunteered. That's the rule. Always volunteer. You volunteer for everything. Everything they put out there. Don't turn anything down, because what looks insignificant might be cover for something important. What looks impossible might be exactly what you're built for. You volunteer because that's what warriors do. They want to be involved, period. The operational brief had come through 3 weeks earlier. Station chief in Damascus, guy named Thompson, solid operator, knew his business, had sent word back to Langley that he'd identified a vulnerability. The Mukhabarat building had contract cleaners. Syrian nationals, vetted by the regime, but still civilians. They came in every night at midnight, worked for 2 hours, left by 2 in the morning. The security detail during that time dropped to a skeleton crew, just 2 guards on the ground floor and 1 roving patrol that checked each floor every 30 minutes. Thompson had observed this pattern for 2 months, documented it, photographed it, confirmed it through multiple sources. That was the window. Midnight to 2 in the morning. That was when the building was most vulnerable. But vulnerable doesn't mean safe. Vulnerable just means less impossible. The plan was simple. Simple plans work. Complex plans fall apart. I'd go in during the cleaning shift, move to the 3rd floor while they worked the 1st floor, get into the northeast office, photograph the files, get out. 2 hours maximum, in and out, while the cleaners provided cover and confusion. Thompson didn't want to do it himself. He was station chief. Blown cover meant the entire Damascus station got burned. Too much risk for the permanent staff. He needed someone expendable, someone from outside. someone who could disappear if it went bad. That's where I came in. I'd been running contract operations for the agency since leaving active SF duty. Not officially on the books, not a staff employee, just a guy who showed up when they needed somebody to do work that couldn't be traced back to Langley, perfect for this kind of operation. If I got caught, if I got killed, the agency could deny everything. Just some petroleum consultant who got himself into trouble in a foreign country. Nothing to do with us. That's how it works in this business. That's how it's always worked. I checked my watch, 11:25. Time to move. Damascus at night is different than Damascus during the day. During the day, it's noise and heat and crowds and dust. At night, it gets quiet. Not peaceful quiet, tense quiet. The kind of quiet where you know people are watching from windows, where you know the secret police have informants on every block, where you know that being foreign makes you interesting, and being interesting in Damascus can get you killed. I left the hotel at 11:35, walked east on Chukri Kuatli Street, normal pace. Not hurried, not slow, just a Western businessman taking an evening walk because the hotel room was too hot and stuffy, which was true, it was. Damascus in August is hell on earth. The streets were mostly empty, a few late taxis cruising for fares, some coffee shops still open with old men smoking and playing backgammon. I passed a bakery that was closed for the night, metal shutters pulled down, the smell of bread still hanging in the air from the day's work. I was wearing dark slacks and a dark blue shirt, nothing tactical. Nothing that looked like break-in gear, just regular clothes. In my jacket pocket, I had a small camera, Minox C, German-made, perfect for document photography. In my other pocket, I had a tension wrench and 2 picks for the lockwork. That was it. No weapons, no wire, no backup communication. If this went wrong, I was on my own. That's how you have to think about these operations. You're on your own, always. Even when you have support, even when you have exfil plan, even when you have station covering for you when the shit hits the fan, you're alone. And you better be comfortable with that. You better be ready for that. Because if you're not, you'll freeze up when it matters, and freezing up gets you killed. 3 blocks. That's all it was. 3 blocks from the hotel to Rue Baghdad. But those 3 blocks felt like walking across the entire country. Every shadow was a potential watcher. Every car that passed was a potential security patrol. Every person I saw was a potential problem. At the corner of Chukri Kuatli and Rue Baghdad, I stopped, lit a cigarette, took my time with it, looked around like a tourist who was lost and trying to figure out which direction to go. The street was quiet, no foot traffic. 1 car parked about 50 meters down, no one inside. The target building was visible from here 4 stories. Concrete construction, flat roof, windows with metal grates, lights on in the ground floor lobby. Upper floors mostly dark. I finished the cigarette, dropped it, stepped on it, turned right onto Rue Baghdad and started walking toward the building. The approach is everything. How you walk, how you carry yourself, how you look at the building or don't look at the building. You're not sneaking. You're not acting suspicious. You're just a guy walking down the street who happens to be walking toward that particular building. Natural, confident, belongs there. 50 meters, 40 meters, 30 meters. My heart rate was elevated but controlled. That's training. That's what happens when you've done this kind of work enough times that your body knows the drill. It gives you adrenaline but keeps you functional. The amateurs get flooded with adrenaline and can't think straight. The professionals get just enough to sharpen their senses and speed up their reactions. 20 meters. I could see through the ground floor windows now. The lobby, 2 guards sitting at a desk, both in uniform. Mukhabarat security. They weren't alert, they were bored. One of them was reading a newspaper. The other one was smoking and looking at nothing in particular. 10 meters. I walked past the main entrance without slowing down, didn't look in, didn't look away. Just walked past like the building didn't mean anything to me. Kept going for another 20 meters. then turned left down a side street that ran alongside the building. This was the vulnerable point. The side street was narrow and dark, less foot traffic, less visibility. If someone was watching, if someone was following, this is where they'd make their move. This is where they'd stop me and ask what the hell I was doing. Nothing happened. I walked halfway down the side street and stopped at a metal door. Service entrance, used by the cleaning contractors and the maintenance staff. Thompson had given me photographs of this door, had given me detailed descriptions, had told me it was secured with a standard pin tumbler lock, nothing sophisticated, nothing that would take more than 2 minutes to defeat. I pulled out the tension wrench and the picks. Lock picking is a skill. It takes practice. It takes feel. You're manipulating tiny metal pins inside a cylinder, trying to get them all to align so the cylinder can turn. Most people think it's complicated. It's not. It's just patience and pressure and knowing when to push and when to wait. I inserted the tension wrench into the bottom of the keyway, applied light rotational pressure, then slid the pick in above it and started working the pins. First pin set, second pin set, third pin hung up a bit too much pressure on the tension wrench. I backed off slightly, tried again, third pin set, fourth pin gave me trouble, wouldn't budge. I worked it for 30 seconds, feeling the spring resistance, feeling the serrations on the pin. Finally, it clicked into place. The cylinder turned. The door opened. I was in. The service corridor was dark and smelled like industrial cleaner and old cigarette smoke. Concrete walls, concrete floor. A single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling about 20 meters down the hallway, barely giving enough light to see by. Perfect. Dark enough to hide in. Light enough to navigate. I closed the door behind me quietly. Let my eyes adjust. Listened. The building had sounds. All buildings have sounds. Ventilation systems. Plumbing. The settling of concrete and metal as the temperature drops at night. You learn to distinguish between normal building sounds and human sounds. Footsteps. Voices. Doors opening and closing. Those are the sounds that matter. I heard nothing human. Just the building. The service stairs were at the end of the corridor. Thompson's briefing had been thorough. Service stairs run from the basement to the roof. Each floor has a landing and a door that opens into the main hallway. The doors are marked with floor numbers. The third floor door opens directly across from the northeast corner office. 30 feet of hallway. That's the exposure. 30 feet where anyone in the hallway would see me. I moved down the corridor. Quiet, not silent. Silence is impossible. Quiet is achievable. I put my feet down carefully, rolling from heel to toe, keeping my weight balanced. The kind of walking you learn when you're moving through jungle, or trying not to wake up a sleeping village, or trying to get close to a target without alerting them. Reached the stairs. Started climbing. The stairwell was darker than the corridor. No lights, just ambient light filtering in from somewhere above. I used the handrail to guide me. First flight, landing, turn. Second flight, landing, turn. Third flight. I stopped at the third floor landing, let my breathing settle, let my eyes adjust to the deeper darkness, put my ear against the door and listened. Voices, faint, coming from somewhere down the hallway. Male voices, speaking Arabic, casual conversation, not alert, not alarmed, just talking. The cleaning crew had to be. They were on schedule, right where they were supposed to be. I checked my watch, 12:17. The guards would do their floor check at 12:30. That gave me 13 minutes to get into the office, get the files, start photographing. Tight timeline, very tight, but workable. I opened the door slowly, half an inch. Looked through the crack. The hallway ran left and right. Fluorescent lights overhead, that horrible institutional lighting that makes everything look sickly and gray. Doors on both sides, office doors, most of them closed. A few open. The voices were coming from the left side, maybe 40 feet down. I couldn't see the people, but I could hear them clearly now. Two men talking about soccer, complaining about the referee in some recent match. The northeast office was to the right. 30 feet down the hallway. Door closed. No light showing under the door. I waited, counting seconds, listening to the cleaners. They were occupied. They weren't moving. Good, 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 good. I opened the door wider, stepped into the hallway, closed the door behind me, turned right and started walking. This is the moment where most people fail. They panic, they rush, they make noise or move wrong or do something that draws attention. You can't do that. You have to walk like you belong there, walk like you work in this building, walk like you have every right to be in this hallway at 12:20 at night. I walked normally, confident stride, not hurried, not slow. The office door had a number on it, 312. That was the target. Thompson's intel said the lock was similar to the service door, pin tumbler, standard Syrian government issue. I reached the door, glanced back down the hallway. The cleaners were still talking, still occupied, still not paying attention. I pulled out the tension wrench and picks again. Worked the lock. This one was easier than the service door. 60 seconds, maybe 70. The cylinder turned. The door opened. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me, locked it from the inside, stood there in the darkness for a moment, breathing, listening, making sure I hadn't triggered anything. No alarms, no sound from the hallway, nothing. I was in. The office was small, maybe 12 feet by 15 feet, one window with metal grates and heavy curtains that were closed, a desk with a chair behind it and 2 chairs in front, filing cabinets against the left wall, 3 of them, gray metal, standard government office furniture. I pulled out a small pen light from my pocket. Red lens. Red light doesn't destroy your night vision the way white light does. I turned it on and started looking around. The desk had papers on it, mostly administrative stuff, expense reports, personnel forms, nothing operational. I ignored it. The filing cabinets, that's what I needed. I tried the first cabinet, locked. Of course it was locked. The second cabinet, also locked. The third cabinet, same. This was expected. Thompson had warned me the cabinets would be locked. He'd also told me that Syrian bureaucrats were predictable. They kept the keys nearby, usually in the desk, usually in the top right drawer. I went to the desk, tried the top right drawer, locked. Hell, tried the top left drawer, locked. Tried the center drawer, it opened. Inside, pens, paper clips, rubber bands, a pack of cigarettes, a lighter, and a small ring of keys. I took the keys, tried them on the first filing cabinet. Third key worked. The drawer slid open. Files. Dozens of files. Organized alphabetically. I started going through them quickly, reading the tabs, looking for anything that mentioned Lebanon operations. Nothing in the first drawer. I tried the second drawer. More files. Different organization. These were organized by date, recent activity, current operations. Bingo. I pulled out a file marked Beirut personnel, opened it. Inside were photographs, biographical information, contact details, and payment records for Syrian assets operating in Beirut. Names I recognized, names I didn't recognize, people who were getting paid by Syrian Military Intelligence to provide information, to run errands, to carry messages, to do the dirty work that intelligence services need done in foreign countries. This was exactly what we needed. I pulled out the Minox camera, started photographing 2 shots per page, make sure everything is in focus, make sure the lighting is even, make sure the text is readable. I worked quickly but carefully. This wasn't the moment to rush and screw up the photos. If the photos were unusable, the whole operation was worthless. Page after page. Photograph. Advance the film. Photograph. Advance the film. I checked my watch. 12:32. Shit. The guard patrol was due any minute. I kept photographing faster now, not rushing, just efficient. Get the critical pages first. The rest can wait. if I run out of time. Footsteps in the hallway. I froze. Heavy footsteps. Military boots on tile floor. Coming closer. I put the camera in my pocket. Put the file back in the cabinet exactly where I'd found it. Closed the drawer quietly. Moved away from the filing cabinets and positioned myself behind the door. The footsteps stopped outside the office. I could see the shadow of feet in the gap under the door. Someone was standing right there, right outside. The door handle moved. Someone tried to open the door. It didn't open. The lock held. Voices in the hallway. 2 men speaking Arabic. One of them was asking why the door was locked. The other one was saying that this office is always locked at night. The first one was saying he should check anyway. The second one was saying, it's fine, nobody's in there, stop being paranoid. They argued for maybe 30 seconds. Then the footsteps moved on down the hallway, getting fainter. Gone. I waited, counted to 100, made sure they weren't coming back. Then I went back to the filing cabinets, pulled out the file again, kept photographing. This is what separates the professionals from the amateurs. The amateurs would have panicked when the guards showed up, would have aborted the mission, would have tried to escape. The professionals understand that close calls are part of the work. You deal with them, you adapt, you keep going. I finished the first file, put it back exactly where I found it, pulled out another file marked Tripoli Operations, photographed it, every page, 2 shots each, moved to the next file. Tyre, assets, then Sidon, support network, then Damascus, Beirut logistics. I was working through the files systematically now, getting everything that mentioned Lebanon, everything that could give us insight into Syrian operations across the border. The camera was maybe 2/3 full, enough film for another 100 shots, maybe 150 if I was lucky. I checked my watch again, 1:15. The cleaning crew would be finishing soon. I needed to move faster. I pulled out 3 more files at once. Started photographing multiple files, switching between them to keep the frame rate up. This was high-value intelligence. This was the kind of material that could reshape our entire operational picture in Lebanon. Names, dates, locations, payment schedules, dead drops, safe houses, communication protocols. The agency would pay a lot of money for this. Hell, they'd probably give me a bonus. Not that I cared about the money. I did this work because it needed to be done, because I could do it, because nobody else was willing to stick their neck out like this. 1:45. The camera was full. No more film. I'd gotten everything I could get. I put the files back, made sure they were in the exact same order, made sure the filing cabinet looked undisturbed, locked the drawers, put the keys back in the desk drawer exactly where I'd found them, stood back and looked at the office. Did it look like someone had been here? Any signs of intrusion? Any disturbance? Nothing. It looked exactly like it had when I came in. Good, 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 good. I moved to the door, put my ear against it, listened, silence. I unlocked the door, opened it slightly, looked out into the hallway, empty. The cleaning crew was gone, probably moved to the 4th floor. The guards hadn't come back. I stepped out into the hallway, closed the office door behind me, made sure it was locked, walked back toward the service stairs. My pace was controlled, not rushed, just a confident walk, like I belonged there, like I had every reason to be in this building at 1:50 in the morning. Reached the stairwell door, opened it, stepped inside, closed it behind me, started descending, 3rd floor, 2nd floor, 1st floor, ground floor. The service corridor was still empty, still dark, except for that single bare bulb. I walked to the service entrance door, stopped, listened. Nothing outside. No voices, no footsteps, no engines. I opened the door, stepped out into the side street. The air hit me like a cold wave. I hadn't realized how hot and stuffy the building had been till I got outside Damascus night air. Still warm, but moving, with a slight breeze carrying the smell of dust and diesel exhaust. I closed the door behind me, started walking. Normal pace, not hurried, just a guy walking home after a late night out, 3 blocks back to the hotel, same route I'd taken on the way there, past the closed bakery, past the coffee shops that were finally shutting down for the night, back onto Chukri Kuatli Street. The hotel lobby was empty, except for the night clerk, who was half asleep behind the desk. I nodded at him. He nodded back. I took the stairs to my room on the 3rd floor, unlocked my door, went inside, locked it behind me, sat down on the bed, pulled out the camera, looked at it. The film inside this camera contained the operational structure of Syrian intelligence activities in Lebanon. It contained names of people who would probably be dead within 6 months once the agency started acting on this information. It contained proof of Syrian government involvement in activities they publicly denied. And I'd just stolen it from right under their noses. I didn't sleep that night. You don't sleep after an operation like that. Your body won't let you. The adrenaline is still there, even when the danger is gone. Your mind keeps replaying every moment, every decision, every close call. You analyze everything you did, looking for mistakes, looking for lessons, looking for things you'll do differently next time. The guard stopping outside the office door, that was the closest moment. If he'd had a key, if he'd decided to check inside anyway, if his partner hadn't talked him out of it, I would have been trapped. No way out. No good explanation for why some American petroleum consultant was hiding behind the door in a locked intelligence office at midnight. Best case scenario: arrest, interrogation, expulsion from Syria. Worst case scenario: arrest, torture, execution. The Syrian Mukhabarat didn't play around. They were professionals, brutal professionals. They'd been trained by the Soviets and the East Germans, which meant they knew every interrogation technique in the book, and they weren't shy about using the ones that left permanent damage or killed you. But the guard had walked away, his partner had convinced him, and I'd kept going. That's the thing about these operations. Luck plays a role. You can plan everything perfectly, you can execute flawlessly, but there's always an element of luck. The guard who doesn't check the locked door, the patrol that runs 10 minutes late, the cleaner who decides to start on the 4th floor instead of the 1st floor. You take the luck when you get it. You don't question it. You don't overthink it. You just accept that the universe gave you a break and you move forward. I sat in that hotel room until dawn. Didn't turn on the lights. Just sat there in the dark, holding the camera, thinking about what came next. The operational protocol was clear. I couldn't develop the film in Damascus, too risky. If Syrian intelligence was watching me, and they might have been watching me the whole time, they'd notice if I suddenly started acting like a spy, buying photo development chemicals, using the hotel's darkroom, acting suspicious. No, the film had to leave Damascus undeveloped, and it had to leave in a way that couldn't be traced back to me. Thompson had set up the exfil plan before I'd even arrived in country. Dead drop location, standard diplomatic pouch protocol. The film would go into the dead drop. Someone from the embassy, someone with diplomatic immunity, someone the Syrians couldn't touch would pick it up. It would go into the diplomatic pouch. It would fly to Langley. It would get developed there. Simple, clean, no direct connection between me and the intelligence product. The dead drop was in a public park, Tishreen Park, on the western side of Damascus. There was a specific tree, oak tree, old, big, had a hollow space at the base where the roots had grown around a rock and created a natural cavity. Perfect dead drop location, hidden from casual view. Easy to service. hard to stake out without being obvious. I was supposed to service the drop at 2 o'clock the following afternoon, walk through the park, stop at the tree, pretend to tie my shoe, place the camera in the hollow, walk away. The embassy officer would service the drop 4 hours later, 6 o'clock, pick up the camera, put it in the diplomatic pouch. Done. That was the plan. But plans change. At 6:30 in the morning, there was a knock on my hotel room door. I opened it. Standing there was a Syrian man in his early 40s, wearing a suit that was too tight and badly needed pressing. He showed me credentials. Mukhabarat, security police. Mr. William, he said in heavily accented English, we need to speak with you, please. My cover name was William Davidson, American petroleum consultant, 48 years old, according to my papers, lived in Houston, worked for a company called Apex Petroleum Services. I smiled, friendly, confused. Is there a problem? No problem, he said. Routine questions. Please come with me. This could be nothing. Could be standard harassment of foreign nationals. The Syrians did that. They liked to remind foreigners that they were being watched, liked to keep people nervous, liked to establish that Syria was their country and foreigners were just guests who could be kicked out any time, or it could be something else. I got dressed, put the camera in my jacket pocket, couldn't leave it in the room. If they searched the room while I was gone, they'd find it. Better to keep it on me. We went downstairs. There was a car waiting outside, black Mercedes, government plates, a driver, another security officer in the front seat. They drove me to a building in the old city. Not the Mukhabarat headquarters, somewhere else, smaller, less official looking. They took me to an office on the second floor, small room, desk, 3 chairs, no windows. They sat me down in one of the chairs across from the desk. The officer who'd come to my hotel sat behind the desk. The other officer stood by the door. Mr. William, the officer said, why are you in Damascus? I went through my cover story, petroleum equipment consultant, meeting with Syrian oil ministry officials, discussing equipment contracts for the eastern fields. I had business cards. I had meeting notes. I had everything a legitimate consultant would have. He asked questions. I answered them. He took notes. He seemed bored. Then he asked, where were you last night? At my hotel, I said, the Sheraton. All night? Yes. I had dinner at the hotel restaurant around 9 o'clock. Then I went to my room, watched television for a while, went to sleep. He wrote this down. Didn't look up. Did you leave the hotel at any time after dinner? No. You're certain? Yes. He finally looked up at me. His eyes were flat, dead. The kind of eyes you see on people who've done interrogations before, who've hurt people before, who know exactly how to spot a lie. The hotel clerk says you returned to the hotel at 2:10 in the morning, he said. Shit. I kept my face neutral, kept my expression confused. I think there's some mistake. I was in my room all night. The clerk is very certain he saw you come in through the lobby. He remembers because it was late and unusual. I shrugged. Maybe he saw someone else. Maybe he's mistaken about the time. I don't know what to tell you. I was in my room. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile, a predator's smile. We will check your room, he said. We will check your belongings. If we find nothing unusual, you are free to go. If we find something interesting, we will have more questions. They searched my hotel room. They searched my luggage. They searched everything I'd brought to Damascus. They didn't find anything because there was nothing to find. I'd traveled light, no operational equipment except what I had carried in my pockets, no documents, no communications gear, no weapons, nothing that would flag me as anything other than a petroleum consultant. The camera was still in my jacket pocket. They'd patted me down when they brought me into the interrogation room, but it had been a quick, superficial search. They'd felt the camera through the jacket, but apparently didn't think it was important enough to check. Just a tourist camera. Nothing unusual? After 3 hours, they let me go. You may continue your business in Damascus, the officer said, but we will be watching you. If you do anything suspicious, if you go anywhere you shouldn't go, we will know, and next time we meet, the conversation will not be so pleasant. I nodded, thanked him politely, left the building, walked back to the hotel. Normal pace, not hurried, not slow. My mind was racing. They knew I'd been out last night. They knew I'd come back at 2:10. The hotel clerk had reported me, which meant the hotel clerk was either an informant or just a regular employee who'd been questioned and told him what he'd seen. Either way, I was now on their radar. They were watching me. They'd probably been watching me before, but now they were watching me more closely. The dead drop was compromised, not because they knew about it, but because they were watching me. If I went to Tishreen Park today, if I stopped at that oak tree, if I did anything that looked like servicing a dead drop, they'd see it. They'd grab me. They'd find the camera. They'd develop the film. They'd know what I'd done. I couldn't use the dead drop. I needed a different exfil plan. Back at the hotel, I went to my room, checked it carefully. They'd searched it but hadn't tossed it. Everything was where I'd left it. No obvious surveillance devices. No obvious signs of tampering. I sat on the bed and thought, option 1, try to get the camera to the embassy through some other method. But how? I couldn't just walk into the embassy. That would be obvious. The Mukhabarat watched the embassy constantly. They tracked everyone who went in and out. If I showed up there, it would confirm their suspicions that I was working with American intelligence. Option 2, keep the camera and try to smuggle it out of Syria when I left the country. But airport security would find it. They'd develop the film. Same outcome as option 1. Option 3, find Thompson, make contact, get him to extract the camera somehow. But that was risky too. Thompson was under surveillance. Meeting with him would expose him, would potentially burn the entire Damascus station. Option 4, destroy the film, expose it to light, make sure the Syrians couldn't get the intelligence even if they caught me. But that meant the mission was a failure. All that risk for nothing. None of the options were good. I sat there for 2 hours, running through scenarios, looking for something that would work. Then I remembered something. There was an Italian trade delegation in Damascus. They'd been there for a week, negotiating a water treatment plant contract with the Syrian government. I'd met one of them at a reception 3 days ago. Engineer named Marcello Rossi, nice guy. We'd talked about the Middle East, about Syria, about business opportunities. He'd given me his card, said if I needed anything while I was in Damascus, I should call him. I pulled out his card, looked at it. This could work. The Italian delegation would be leaving soon, probably within the next day or two. They'd go through airport security, but with diplomatic courtesy, their luggage wouldn't be searched as thoroughly. They'd have diplomatic status, or at least quasi-diplomatic status, as part of an official trade delegation. If I could get the camera into Rossi's luggage without him knowing, if I could retrieve it after he left Syria, the film would make it out. It was risky, but it was better than the other options. I called Rossi's hotel, left a message saying I wanted to take him to dinner tonight, my treat, to thank him for his hospitality earlier in the week. He called back 2 hours later, said yes, said he'd be happy to have dinner. Suggested a restaurant in the old city. 8 o'clock. Perfect. I spent the afternoon preparing. Went to a camera shop. Bought film, bought a camera case, bought some other photography supplies. Just a tourist buying souvenirs. Nothing suspicious. Back at the hotel, I carefully removed the exposed film from the Minox camera, put it in a small metal canister, sealed it, put the canister in a padded envelope, addressed the envelope to myself at a post office box in Rome, didn't mail it, just prepared it. Then I went to dinner with Rossi. We met at the restaurant, 8 o'clock on the dot. He was waiting at a table in the back, smoking a cigarette, drinking wine. We had a good dinner, talked about Damascus, talked about business, talked about the water treatment plant his company was building. He was excited about it, big contract, good money, good exposure for his firm. After dinner, we had coffee, then more coffee. I was stretching it out, waiting for the right moment. Around 10:30, Rossi excused himself to use the restroom. I'd been waiting for this. While he was gone, I reached across the table and grabbed his jacket, which was hanging on the back of his chair, slipped the padded envelope into the inside pocket, put the jacket back exactly where it had been. Took maybe 5 seconds, maybe 7. Rossi came back, sat down, finished his coffee. We talked for another 20 minutes. Then he said he needed to get back to his hotel. Early flight tomorrow morning. We shook hands. He thanked me for dinner, put on his jacket, the envelope inside. He didn't notice, didn't feel it, and left. I sat there for a few more minutes, finished my coffee, paid the bill, walked back to the hotel. The envelope was gone. The film was gone. It was on its way out of Syria. Now I just needed to get it back. I left Damascus 2 days later. Normal departure. Took a taxi to the airport, checked in for my flight to Rome, went through security. They searched my luggage thoroughly, checked every pocket of every bag, looked at everything, found nothing. I boarded the plane, sat in my seat, waited for takeoff. The plane lifted off. Damascus disappeared below. Syria disappeared below. I was out in Rome. I went to the post office box I'd used on the envelope. The envelope wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. Rossi had probably found it in his jacket pocket, probably wondered where it came from, probably thrown it away. But I had his hotel information from his business card. I went to his hotel, asked for him at the front desk. They said he'd checked out 2 days ago. I went to his company's office in Rome, asked to speak with Signor Rossi. They said he was back in Milan, gave me his Milan office number. I called Milan, asked for Rossi. He answered. Marcello, I said. It's William Davidson. We had dinner in Damascus. Ah, yes, he said. William, how are you? I'm well. I'm actually in Rome right now. I was wondering, this might sound strange, but did you happen to find an envelope in your jacket pocket? I think I might have accidentally placed something in your jacket at dinner. I was confused, had too much wine. There was a pause. An envelope, he said slowly. Yes. Another pause. Addressed to you, he said, in Rome. Yes. That's the one. I found it when I returned to my hotel. I was very confused. I thought perhaps you had placed it there as a joke or by mistake. I still have it. I was going to mail it for you. That would be wonderful, I said. I'm in Rome for a few more days. Could you send it to me here? Of course. Where are you staying? I gave him a hotel address, not where I was actually staying, a different hotel, a place where I could pick up packages without showing ID. 3 days later, the envelope arrived. I opened it. The film canister was inside, undamaged, sealed. I took it to a safe house the agency maintained in Rome. Thompson had given me the address before I left Damascus, just in case. Standard contingency planning. At the safe house, there was a dark room. I developed the film myself. Took 6 hours. Did it carefully. Made sure every frame was clear. Made sure every document was readable. Every photograph had come out perfect. Every page of every file was clear and legible. Names, dates, locations, payment schedules, dead drops, safe houses, communication protocols, everything. I made prints of the critical pages, put them in a manila envelope, took the envelope to the American embassy, asked for the station chief, told him I had material for immediate transmission to Langley. They didn't ask questions. They took the envelope. 24 hours later, I got confirmation that the material had reached Langley. 48 hours later, I got a message from Thompson. Outstanding work. Material is high value. Damascus station sends thanks. That was it. No parade, no medal, no public recognition. Just a message saying the intelligence was good and thank you. That's how this business works. You do the work because it needs to be done, because you can do it, because nobody else is willing to stick their neck out like you are. You don't do it for recognition. You don't do it for glory. You do it because you're a warrior, and warriors wish to be involved, period. That operation in Damascus taught me something important. something I'd known intellectually but hadn't fully understood until I was sitting in that interrogation room with the Mukhabarat officer staring at me with those dead eyes. When you volunteer for everything, when you say yes to every operation, when you put yourself forward for the hard jobs and the dangerous jobs and the impossible jobs, you end up in situations where everything depends on you keeping your head straight and not panicking the guard at the door. That was the moment. That was when most people would have lost it, would have tried to fight their way out or run or do something stupid that would have gotten them killed or captured. But I didn't panic. I waited. I stayed quiet. I let the situation develop, and the situation resolved itself. That's what training gives you. That's what experience gives you. That's what a lifetime of saying yes to hard operations gives you. The ability to stay calm when everything is going to hell. The ability to think clearly when you're scared shitless. The ability to wait when every instinct is telling you to move. You can't teach that in a classroom. You can't learn it from a manual. You learn it by doing it, by volunteering, by putting yourself in situations where you have to perform or die. And here's the thing. That Damascus operation led to other operations, better operations. The intelligence we got from those files helped us roll up Syrian networks in Lebanon, helped us identify their assets, helped us understand their operational procedures. And because I'd done that work, because I'd proven I could operate in denied areas without support, other opportunities came my way. Harder operations, more important operations. Operations where the stakes were even higher and the risks were even greater. That's what volunteering gets you. Not just the immediate mission, the next mission, and the mission after that, and a career that lasts 40 years instead of 4. People ask me what made me good at this work, what made me different from all the other guys who tried and failed or tried and quit or tried and got killed. I tell them, I don't quit. That's it. That's the whole secret. Not intelligence, not physical ability, not special training. I don't quit. When the guards stopped at the door in Damascus, I didn't quit. When the Mukhabarat brought me in for questioning, I didn't quit. When the dead drop got compromised and I had to figure out a new plan in 30 minutes, I didn't quit. And that's the difference between the guys who make it and the guys who don't. The guys who make it keep going when everything is falling apart. They adapt. They improvise. They find another way. They never, never, never stop moving forward. The guys who don't make it give up. They convince themselves the mission is impossible. They decide the risk is too high. They choose comfort over commitment. That's the test. That's always been the test. Not how strong you are, not how smart you are, not how many languages you speak or how many jumps you've done or how many firefights you've survived. The test is, do you quit or not? If you quit, you lose. Every time. No exceptions. If you don't quit, you've got a chance. Maybe a small chance. Maybe a slim chance. But a chance. And that's all you need, a chance. That's what I had in Damascus. That's what I've had my whole career. Just a chance. Nothing guaranteed. Nothing certain. But I took that chance and I ran with it, and I never quit. Never. That's the lesson. That's the only lesson that matters. Don't quit. Everything else is just details.